The Sports Voice, KMOX.
Yeah, look, I would say that if we can start in a similar fashion, take the goals out of it, and then just finish stronger than we start. And that, I think, is our focus in this match, playing at home, trying to put a complete performance together. It's easy for me to sit up here and say, I think if they would have finished stronger, they would have gotten the result there. But that's soccer too. I always think of it sometimes like a chess match, and the deeper you go into a chess match, the more open and vulnerable you are. So you need to, be stronger towards the end of it. And that's our goal. If we can put together that kind of performance, be better in the second half, but specifically better in the last 20 minutes, gives us a good chance to be successful.
St. Louis City interim head coach John Hackworth speaking after City's 4-1 loss to Colorado away on Sunday afternoon. Nate Gatter, Gen C's with you for the St. Louis City Soccer Report on this Thursday evening. So glad to have you with us. City have played twice since we were last on the air. The first was John Hackworth's first game as interim head coach after Bradley Carnell was relieved of his duties following City's 4-3 loss to Vancouver on June the 29th. City promptly won their first game in nearly 2 months, a 2-0 victory at home over San Jose last Wednesday. But whatever the positive feelings were after that game, Jen, I think they were more or less completely erased by a 4-1 drubbing against Colorado. Granted, a game in which City were without many key players and then lost Roman Bürki in the first half to back spasms.
Right? That's number 8.
Though, thankfully, he was back in training and seems to be okay. But really just a day where it felt like there was almost no hope for City, in part because they were so undermanned.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go today, but I was there on Tuesday. He was in the training center, didn't do training. Coach Hackworth talked on Tuesday about the fact that apparently he's been a little bit bothered by this back spasm, but they thought they had it, quote, released. And it kind of bugged him. And then after his first kick, he was like, no, I don't think I can go anymore. So the hope was that to keep working on it this week, and hopefully he's available for the next game.
Johnny Klein's first MLS goal was really the lone bright spot for City on Sunday in the 4-1 defeat. They'll be back at it in just about 48 hours against Vancouver. Y98 pregame on Saturday night at 7 o'clock with our own Gen C 7:30 kickoff. Joey Zanaboni and Dale Schilly will call it for you. As always, Dale Schilly will be with us in just a few minutes. We'll also hear from Bradley Wright Phillips, who you might see and hear on MLS 360 before and after games on MLS Season Pass. George Ganser will join us for Laws of the Game at the end of the first hour. We'll visit with Ruth Harker in the second hour, Terry Mitchner as well. To cover really the gamuts in this show, as we often do. Let's start, though, with our focus where it should be on St. Louis City. Still now 8 points back of the last playoff spot. They're on 22 points at this stage of the season, in 12th in the MLS Western Conference. 22 points from 22 games. That goal difference now has slipped to -9, better only than Sporting Kansas City and San Jose, the two teams behind them in the Western Conference. It's hard to feel hopeful. I've been consistently saying that I do have hope, in part because of the underlying numbers and things. And I wouldn't say I've given up hope, because the 2-0 performance against San Jose was pretty good, but San Jose really are terrible.
Right.
They have a -26 goal difference in 22 games, 15 goals worse than Sporting Kansas City.
And there were a lot of chances that City, it could have been more.
It could have been more. It could have been more, although Leuven's goal, I think, very fortunate to have gone in. One way or another, a win that you would always expect them to get, even as poorly as they were playing, and then to turn around and play so poorly in Colorado, a place where they haven't had their best performances over their young history so far. It's a shame for them, because whatever momentum, even if it's a game they had to win against San Jose and should always win against San Jose, whatever momentum that gave them, it feels like was just completely taken out of their sails.
It does. And what a game for Johnny Klein to get his first MLS goal, for it to be so quickly erased in a way. I'm sure he's still ecstatic about it. But, I watched back the game, and it seems like I should catch more that I do when I'm busy. And Nate, you've run games before. You're busy doing other stuff, looking for scoreboards. And sometimes I'm looking up, and Kyle, you were working the game with me. And sure, I'm look up and I'm like, I missed the play because I'm looking for a score. So I actually watched the whole thing through again the next day, and there was a while, and it really, for me, watching, it was at the 75th minute that I remember going, "Uh-oh." I remember looking just as a viewer and going, "Uh-oh, I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like the fact that the subs aren't making a difference. Uh-oh, I'm watching Colorado." And again, I beat the drum for the altitude because I lived there and I remember it being so hard. But their ability, Colorado Rapids, to get numbers up and numbers back, they were always in a numbers up situation virtually. And so City, you could just see declining and declining in the second half and the ability to get numbers up and numbers back behind the ball, and just watch. Dale can tell us the story. Remind me when Dale comes in there to tell the story about what you see on the, is it the state when they come out of the stadium, there's a big concrete wall. They have something painted that definitely plays to the mental part of the game and how the altitude's going to get you.
Well, we can ask Dale about that coming up right after the break. Dale Schilly will be with us next. The St. Louis City Soccer Report underway on KMOX.
For everything online, it's Odyssey.com. Download the Odyssey app and listen to KMOX for all the news.
2415 to see if you qualify. That's 800-578-2415.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Nate Gatter, Jen Cease back with you for the St. Louis City Soccer Report, and Dale Schilly joins us now. You hear him on every match at our sister station, Y98, as our analyst. Dale, City coming off a really, really disheartening 4-1 loss in Colorado. Admittedly, so many injuries, so many things working against them. But whatever, as I said just a couple of minutes ago, whatever momentum they took from that 2-0 win over San Jose at home felt like it evaporated in front of our eyes at the altitude in Colorado over the weekend. What can you tell me to give me any hope right now?
Well, I would say, one, you met up against a good Colorado team, and the way that they've changed the way they've played, they're very difficult to play at their place. So, Chris Armas, when he came in and changed things, he just said, look, this should be the toughest place to play in the country, in the league. And every restart is taken quickly. They play a pretty direct style, but still with good possession. I mean, not just smashing the ball and turning it over. They make you chase it. When they lose it, they're willing to get after it. So they make you work, but particularly with quick restarts, quick throw-ins. And I believe it was the second goal or the third one was a quick throw-in that caught us flat-footed. And, next thing you know, the ball's in the back of the net. So, I would say, one, we played against a good team. I would say the other thing is, let's see what happens with time with John and the guys in training, in a training environment. There's a lot that you can change. There's habits you can change. There's some things that you can instill in the guys, but only when you have them in training. That's where good habits come from. You just don't do a walkthrough session, then jump into a game and create good habits. So there's work to be done there. Where are we in the playoff picture and trying to qualify and get above the playoff line? That's going to take some work. So I would say, Nate, I'm going to convince you that we're going to get better. We're going to see a better product as the year goes on, and hopefully that better product allows us to win enough games to get us into the playoffs.
Honest but encouraging. That's probably the best you could have hoped for.
Dale, I know we got to move forward to the next games, of course, but there was a little story you told me besides talking about the restarts being really fast and how that is kind of a tactical and a mindset kind of advantage, right? As wear your opponent down if you're good at altitude. But you talked to me about something that was painted on a wall. That'll get in your head. What was that again?
Yeah. So, there's always something on a locker room wall someplace. So there's all sorts of motivational type things that coaches will put up in the wall. Well, this is a whole nother level. So when we walk through the tunnel, we get in the bus, we pull into the stadium, we're walking through the tunnel towards the locker room. You turn to the right to go into the locker room. And on the left, on the cinder block wall on the left, is a beautiful landscape of the mountains in purple and sky blue, and in white writing, big block, bold letters. Welcome to Denver. You are welcome to Colorado. You are at 5,280 feet. And the first thing that goes when you start to get tired is your lungs, and then you can't feel your legs, and then it's hard to run, or something of that nature. They just put it
basically telling you how you're going to die.
Right in your head. And then at the scoreboard in the stadium, above the scoreboard, they had the same first line above the scoreboard. So if you go back and watch the game, you'll see on the scoreboard where it says, welcome to Colorado. You're at 5,280 feet, or whatever that number is. Feet of elevation. They have a little, blurb right after it that you can read as you're looking at the scoreboard.
That's really cool. And it reminds me of like the Iowa visiting locker room. The Iowa football visiting locker room is like all painted a really light shade of pink, because apparently studies show that's like the most relaxing color, and they want their opponent like off their game and passive and not ready to come out and hit people. That's even more. This one's even more in your face in terms of how much they're trying to get into your head.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to do a humidity one.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So let's talk about this game coming up in a couple of days back at home against Vancouver. Again, every home game especially, it feels so massive at this stage, and only 3 regular season games left to try to establish any inkling of momentum before the Leagues Cup break coming up at the end of this month. And Vancouver obviously is kind of a weird matchup because it's just 2 weeks since City went there and blew the 2-0 lead to ultimately lose 4-3 in the game that spelled the demise of Bradley Carnell's tenure as City's head coach. We talked about it a couple of times. I know the City played Portland in a similarly short stretch very early on last year, and we talked about that. In this instance, especially after a 7-goal thriller that was played a couple of weeks ago, how do you think the recency of that meeting affects this one coming up on Saturday?
I think it affects it in one way, and that you'll see two completely different lineups. Hopefully, Roman's okay. I know he was training today. I don't know, I didn't get to stick around to watch all the reps and that kind of stuff, but, hopefully we get some of the guys back. I know Nilsson's been training as well, and other guys have been running. So hopefully we'll get to see some more faces in the lineup that are more regulars. So that would be good. And the other thing that I think you got to take with you from that game, it was one of the strangest games I've seen. We did have a good start, and we did get up 2-0, but I can't say that we deserved to be up 2-0. We scored 2 goals, and that was great. It was a great start, but you never felt like the game was going to end with a 2-0 win because there's so much time left and Vancouver's so explosive. And then the 4 goals that they scored, they're so fortuitous. I mean, the first goal spins around Ben. If it's on grass, it probably skips out of bounds, but it's on a dry turf, so it bites and curves into the goal. The backheel ball by Ben White, he may have instinctually heeled the ball over his head towards the goal. It happened to go in, but no way do you plan on bouncing a ball into him as he's running away from you behind him that he has to heel it over his head. That doesn't happen. There's just some strange situations in that game. So hopefully it's more normal this time around and we can put our best foot forward and put a complete full game together. I watched the training yesterday, watched the majority of it. There's a lot of coaching going on. There's a lot of stop and coaching points and giving some instruction. There's groups that are broke down. I saw today that they were broke down into 3 groups, like a box defending group, an attacking group, and a midfield group. There's some functional work that's being done. I'm sure that John and the staff are trying to clean up some of the little things that they see to help, kind of make the game better and more organized and create a better environment. Sometimes you just have to break some things down to get them cleaned up.
Yeah, Nukvi Thorson today spoke at the press conference and mentioned that there are a lot of tweaks are happening. Just getting everybody on the same page so everybody knows their roles, knows what they're doing. And he really said it was basically minor things, but there are a lot of little changes happening. That's what it seems like you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's nothing major. And it's not that Bradley wasn't doing it. I'm sure he was doing it. There's different ways of doing things. And sometimes you got to connect with guys differently and a different way of communicating or a different way of organizing. Maybe it strikes a chord.
Dale, we appreciate your time. As always, we're looking forward to hearing you again on Saturday night against Vancouver. And hopefully City can make it 2 wins in a row at City Park.
All right. Thank you.
Dale Schilly, our match analyst on our sister station, Y98, for every City game, along with our own Jen Cease doing that pregame. And you can hear her on all the scoreboard updates, all the hits throughout the game as well. If you missed Dale's interview, want to go back and hear it, or any of his past ones for that matter, you can get it on the free Odyssey app on the St. Louis City Soccer Report podcast page. You can also listen to every City game, every Cardinals game live. That is on the free Odyssey app. We're going to have Bradley Wright Phillips joining us on the other side of the break. He's part of that MLS 360 coverage on Apple's MLS Season Pass. Did want to mention before I forget that if you can't listen on Y98, or if you are doing it at the same time as listening, because for home games you can simulcast the Y98 audio.
That's right.
The MLS Season Pass games and MLS 360 for that matter, all of the Apple MLS content is free this coming weekend. So whether you subscribe to MLS Season Pass or not, you can watch City at home on Saturday night against Vancouver.
And I don't know if you're like me, but if something's free, I like to get a lot of it. So I will be having it on all day long.
Yep. And then when it comes time for the City game, you can click over to the audio and select the home radio broadcast, and you will hear the Y98 call. So you don't have to listen to whatever Yabo's MLS and Apple throw on there, right? You can listen to the hometown guys. if you appreciate Dale Schilly's analysis, that's the best
right.
way
That's
to
where
get
you'll get him.
90-plus minutes of it whenever you would like. All right, Bradley Wright Phillips with us after the break. The St. Louis City Soccer Report continues next on KMOX.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current
on your psychics.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
The St. Louis City Soccer Report continues with Bradley Wright Phillips of MLS 360 on MLS Season Pass, which, as we mentioned before the break, is free this weekend. Apple TV MLS Season Pass MLS 360 and every game free this weekend, including
Free
St.
means
Louis
you
City.
put it on all day long.
That's right.
That's what you do.
With St. Louis City hosting Vancouver in a little less than 48 hours Saturday night. It'll also be in our sister station, Y98. Bradley, thanks so much for being with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, obviously, it has not been the season 2 for City that it was a year ago, right? Everybody, they were the darlings of the league last year, and this year maybe have turned into pumpkins to some degree, and just a lot of things have gone wrong. From your vantage point, what is the number one culprit, or what is the biggest thing that has changed to cause City to struggle so much this year relative to last season?
It's going to sound obvious, but I'm a big believer in you can talk about all the tactics you want. You can have a different philosophy, but I said it, I think I spoke to you guys last time maybe, and I said it, if you don't take care of business in both boxes, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Because I looked at some of the numbers a few weeks ago, St. Louis City, and the running's been the same. Nobody's outworking them. Nobody's outrunning them. They're trying to play a similar way with a bit more possession, try to add to the game, but they're just not getting it done inside both boxes.
Bradley, is that, I get asked this all the time, and I don't have the secret wand answer, is that it's not getting it done right in the front end. We're not finishing, and City is not necessarily being clinical and clean at the back end. Like, for example, the Colorado Rapids games. I remember when the Rapids were in on City's box, I was like, uh-oh. But when City got in on their box, I didn't quite have that feeling. Is it the lack of talent there? Is it just the lack of focus, the lack of the tiny pieces of the tactical clinical?
I wouldn't say lack of talent. I think if you're playing in the MLS, you're obviously very talented. I think it's very difficult to score goals. I think we take it for granted because we see them week in, week out. But it isn't easy to score goals. I think the form of João Klaus dipped a little bit. I think chances that were going in for him last season are not going in so much for him this season. And then just the back line, it's just giving up goals that they wouldn't have given up last year. But I also think it's growing pains for St. Louis. You know, you come into the league and have a wonderful season. Well, we can't expect that to be the norm. You know, there's going to be bends and windy roads on this journey, you know, to success. And I think that's what they're going through right now.
You mentioned that the dip is probably down to performance in both boxes. As you say, a lot of the underlying numbers still look similar to last season and don't suggest necessarily that all of a sudden they've forgotten to play or that they're not sticking to the tactical identity or what have you. With that in mind, do you think it was maybe either a bit harsh or premature to have fired Bradley Carnell when they did? Or do you think that's just the nature of the beast, that when you're at this level, it's a results business and something had to change?
No, I think, from my chat, I think it's a little bit harsh. I think, you know, in your short history, Bradley Carnell's giving you the best memories ever. You know, who would have thought you come into MLS and have such a season? But that was also maybe what, you know, was his curse. I think they saw the limits that this team got to. And now, you know, when the standards drop a little bit, not to his fault, but when they drop a little bit, they say, now we need to move on. I think it's a little bit harsh, if I'm being honest. I will say, if you get rid of the man, I think the next one coming in, or whoever decides to take that role, or whoever you appoint, has to be even bigger and better. It has to be for a reason, because I think Bradley Carnell done a brilliant job.
You know, Bradley is looking at the game against Colorado Rapids. We talk a lot about the different styles of play, of course, and when we had our own analyst talking about Colorado Rapids, saying how are we going to perform against a team that likes to tackle and play in transition, just like City does. What is that going to look like then? If you're taking a look ahead at our next game this weekend at City Park, so at home with your own fans, which is definitely a boon, but against a strong Seattle team as well.
Yeah, well, the first one, the game against Colorado, you both have a similar playing style. I think when I've been involved in games like that, it's all about the second ball. You're going to have to fight for scraps. You're going to have to take care of the runners. There's going to be runs in behind for the back line to deal with, but it's winning that second ball and what you do with it when you win it. How quick can you go forward and be clinical with your chances? And sorry, you mentioned Seattle, sorry?
Yeah, so Seattle Sounders are our next game up, and going forward and thinking about where they are in their season against City. What are the fans going to be looking for, and what kind of game does City have to play to get a desperately needed win at home?
I think with Seattle right now, I think they're 4 games unbeaten, maybe including the Open Cup. They're on a tear right now, and I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't think they played the league's best in that run, but they're building confidence and momentum. They've got tricky players. But I think the best St. Louis you see is when they're up in a team's face, when they press high, play the game quick. You know, the teams that like to possess the ball a bit more don't like that. So the better they can implement their game style and playing style on Seattle, the better chance that St. Louis have of winning that game.
Bradley, you mentioned, and rightfully so, without question, the dip in form for both Joao Klaus individually and also for City collectively going forward in their finishing. Obviously, you're a guy with well north of 100 MLS goals to your name. When you went through a little dry spell and you felt the form dipping, I mean, particularly playing in the under the microscope the way you did in New York, obviously that pressure is significant. Was there anything different that you did, whether it was in training, in preparation for a game, or maybe even away from the field, to just try to get your mind right and get yourself feeling like you had your mojo back?
Yeah, I did. And it can be a lonely place. I think when strikers or forwards or attacking players are not scoring, the goal seems very small. But what I tried to do, I tried to take scoring a goal away. I tried to take that out of my brain. So I just would think, hit the target. Because the amount of times we can watch a game on the weekend coming up and you'll see a goal, it doesn't go right in the corner. I think when you're not scoring, you try to be so perfect. And I tried to whittle it down to just hitting the target. And I found when I just tried to hit the target, the ball started to go into the net. And then you can get more confident and start being a bit more precise. But for me, I just went back to square one, hit the target, make the keeper make a save.
Looking at practices, we have Cedric Toyhurt is in town in St. Louis. He is practicing currently with the team in training. Jake Gerwood Reich was on Tuesday at least running on his own. He's young. He's 19. Marcel Hartl's not in just yet, but has promised Coach John Hackworth that, hey, Coach, I'm always fit. We're looking for at least maybe two of those players to be available for Kansas City, and then Marcel Hartl hopefully for Leagues Cup. You've probably been through all this. What kind of a boon and kind of a help can that be for these new players coming in for St. Louis City, and can they actually help to save the season?
Well, first of all, for the new players, it's nice, it's refreshing. One for them and one for the fans. They don't have all the I don't want to be too dramatic, but they don't have the trauma of the rest of the season. They're coming in fresh face. They're ready to impress, take their chance, get in the starting lineup. So they're going to come in with none of that trauma. And then what that does to the guys that's been there, the players that's been there, they think, oh, we need to play well. I don't want to lose my spot. It's also just a great energy to have some new players come into the locker room. It's almost like a new team. You can almost start from square one.
Bradley, we really appreciate your time and expertise that you share with us, not only tonight, but on the weekend as well on MLS 360. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Speak soon.
Bradley Wright Phillips of MLS 360 on MLS Season Pass. That is free this weekend, along with every game on Apple TV. And so you can watch Bradley and crew in the pregame. When it comes time for kickoff, you can flip the audio coverage over to Y98 here, Jen, along with Joey and Dale on the call. I think that's a really good point that he makes there at the end. I mean, he was full of insights. But in particular at the end, that, at the risk of it being an overdramatic word, obviously we're using it in a soccer context, but there is trauma from a season like this. There's at least significant disappointment and the baggage that comes with it, the frustration, the buildup of that, right? It's almost like lactic acid of the mind and of the spirit that it makes you not really want to come to training the same way. And you're not as excited for the next game. You're almost dreading the next game sometimes, I imagine. And bringing in a few guys who just don't have that baggage and aren't bringing that with them, maybe that infuses a little bit of excitement, a little bit of positivity into the dressing room and onto the field. Yeah,
it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy that happens when you think, I need to score, but I didn't score and I'm not scoring. Somebody else coming in, they don't have that. They've probably come off of or they've had that time. When golfers, I don't golf, have a bad swing. Sometimes they have to just literally walk away from the game. You don't swing for a while. Same thing in softball and baseball. We would sometimes just stop trying to hit. So sometimes stop trying to do what you're trying to do and do something else or let somebody else do it. I think is great too. It seems to be raising some spirits in practice, just a couple of, and it'll be interesting to get Hartl in as well and see what that does.
George Gansler will be with us next. Laws of the game coming up after the break. It's the St. Louis City Soccer Report on KMOX.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream,
it could help save their life. Visit cancer.org/getscreened to learn more.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
George Ganser joins us on KMOX as the St. Louis City Soccer Report continues, so it's time for that sound.
Now, laws of the game.
Former MLS and FIFA assistant referee George Ganser with us as the St. Louis City Soccer Report continues. Nate Gatter, Jen Cease with you. George, we're going to start with something you don't often get to do, which is bragging on referees, because I know in your mind the couple of games since we were last on, the 2-0 City win at home over San Jose and the 4-1 win or loss away to Colorado, both well refereed.
Well, let's just start with I don't think it's just in my mind.
Yeah.
But the referees in both of those games, and I appreciate you calling that out, Nate. Both the referees in the game at home and then the game in Colorado did a really excellent job. In particular, I want to focus on the one in St. Louis. He and this is what fans should expect. He was in control of the match the entire time, completely. You could see the players trusted him. He was going to call what was expected. He let them play, and it just really was an overall terrific performance by the referee crew.
I'm thinking so that's boring. I was thinking of my next question. I'm like, that's so boring.
In the stadium.
We don't have a segment if there's not drama, George.
Yeah, well, let's go to some drama. In the stadium, people got upset a little bit about Indiana Vasilev's yellow card toward the end of the match. It's 100% a yellow card because he's stopping a promising attack, right? And so love the emotion of the fans, love getting upset about it. But the reality is it was the right decision. And it's just the way it goes.
So let's talk about some drama, though, that I think, went everywhere on social media last night. And it's not an MLS game. It's Uruguay and Colombia. The fans, what happens in something like that? There's another game I'm thinking of, too. But just speaking of that, obviously that is not a situation that
let's explain to people what happened.
So thank you for that. And I don't know the whole story, honestly. I just saw the one clip. So I see two parts, right? Where we're having a problem on the field, and then we're also having a problem in the stand with fans, and I believe it's also involving a player. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is after Colombia's 1-0 win over Uruguay in the Copa semifinals, and the Colombian fans were quite celebratory, understandably so. Obviously, it was a fraught game, and the players were getting after each other on the field after the game. Some fans were getting after each other, which is not unheard of, especially international games. And then the issues really came to a head when some of the Colombian fans were getting a little too rowdy in the Uruguay players' family section. And that prompted some of the Uruguay players to take exception, go into the stands, and headlined by Liverpool's Darwin Nunez, who's quite a big name player internationally, throwing punches with Colombian fans. Obviously, it's a delicate sort of situation in terms of who's right, who's wrong. Your first instinct is there's no reason for players to ever be in the stands fighting anyone. Then, on the other hand, if they're protecting their wives and children, you can understand why they wouldn't want to just stand down on the field and watch them get accosted. So let's just leave that alone, because you're probably going to have a different perspective based on your read on the situation, whatever. Let's just focus on the fact that American stadiums obviously don't require the same sort of security that European soccer stadiums generally do. For instance, if you watch a Premier League game, you'll see police lining literally every step, separating the sections of the home fans and the visiting fans, who will be sequestered in a corner. They'll come into the stadium together, they'll leave together, all of that. So, George, with not only the Copa America final in mind, but maybe even more importantly, World Cup 2026 coming up in just a couple of short years, what do you think U.S. soccer and U.S. stadiums have to learn from this to better prepare themselves to make sure something like this doesn't repeat itself?
Yeah, so very first thing is the referees will be nowhere to be found because they go straight to the locker room after. They are not responsible for that. So this is a stadium administration.
What are they supposed to be? Get in the stands and start separating people? It's not their job.
No, not a chance. Exactly. So here's the thing: is that's really poor preparation from the stadium's perspective. This is not going to go well for the Uruguayan team overall. It's not going to go well for Darwin Nunez. It's not going to go well for the stadium and U.S. Soccer's bid with the World Cup. So that whole organizational point there with the World Cup, that will be taken into account when they put the security together for the teams. There are teams that play each other that you generally don't have to worry about that. There are other teams like last night that you have to worry about that every single time they play, no matter where they play in the world, whether it's Australia, the United States, Europe, or at home in Uruguay or Colombia. So these are things that unfortunately are not going to go well. There are going to be a lot of fines. But from a preparation perspective, it does give the organizing committee a heads up and a really kind of a kick in the rear end, because they know now that they need to be prepared better for that.
There's another game, George, and actually, it's not just a game. I think it's the overall. So when I talk about this, I get really frustrated playing on the women's side of the game in a time where none of this nonsense happened. Not in our side of the game. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen now, but I'm saying a lot of this, what I think is baby toddler behavior nonsense, and it's not passion to me. It's nonsense. So I think this particular game was SKC and somebody else, and whoever's throwing the ball in is trying to throw the ball in, and the opposing player is standing in his face, jumping up and down. So he takes the ball and he throws it off his head, and fight ensues. Another game where a player's kind of rolling on the ground and being a baby, but then the other opposing player takes the ball and kicks it in his back, and then he rolls around like a baby, and a fight ensues. Yeah. So what I'm really going for is less the game and more of the persistent infringement, if you will, in this side of the game professionally, of this, really nonsense small behaviors, but are just something I don't want my kids playing to watch and reenact, and something the game does not need to have.
Yeah, so the situation in Kansas City was a throw-in where the player jumping around in front of the ball from Dallas, the Kansas City, I think that's right. The Kansas City player then threw the ball at his head as he was trying to throw the ball in. For me, we only had one yellow card out of that. For me, that's 2 red cards. Those are both violent conduct, not the jumping around, but he went in after the player threw the ball at him. He went in and really, it was a chest bump, but it was one heck of a powerful
right, but what's the
bump,
solution to this, George? It's obviously not fines. Fines doesn't do anything. Cars aren't doing anything. What is it?
Well, that situation in Kansas City is an isolated incident. That doesn't happen all the time. The one that happened in the Uruguay-Colombia game, I think it was Uruguay-Colombia, where he kicks the ball off his back. It's a light touch. Actually, it was Canada. Canada.
It's Canada. You're right.
Canada, Argentina. This is a situation that, the players do it because they're putting on a show and they're trying to get an advantage no matter what. It's not the way we look at the game in this country. In other countries, that's exactly what they expect. So, it's really difficult to manage from a referee's perspective. That was not enough to be violent conduct. He got a yellow card. That's exactly what he should have gotten in that case. But it's really hard to manage. And I don't know if it'll ever come out of the game unless FIFA comes in and says, we are stopping this. So, VAR has helped a little bit, but not a lot. I think the situation too, quickly with the, in MLS, where they have, if you're on the ground for 15 seconds and it's a non-serious injury, you're off for 2 minutes. That has sped games up, and I don't know what the statistics are. I haven't seen anything about it, but it has clearly sped things up in MLS. So maybe that's a pilot for FIFA. Maybe that's something then that gets adapted around the world.
George, we appreciate you as always. Look forward to having you on again next Tuesday. Oh, I haven't mentioned that. We'll mention that in just a moment. George, thanks so much for your time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nate.
George Ganser, former MLS and FIFA assistant referee, with us for Laws of the Game. And thankfully, that reminded me, next week we will be on Tuesday evening rather than Thursday, 8 to 10, Tuesday evening, the 16th.
Floating soccer report. Floating soccer report.
It is the floating soccer report. The following week after that, the 25th, will be the next KMOX Soccer Showcase presented by Michelob Ultra. So we'll have more information on that as well as we get closer. Just a minute here before we send ourselves into the break and get you to news. Looking back on our first hour, obviously we're going to have a couple of other discussion points coming up in the second hour when we talk to Ruth Harker and Terry Mickler. But thinking about some of the overarching discussion points for City in the first hour, and with the minute or so that you have, where are you at right now emotionally with City, and also using your brain as far as what's feasible for them going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Everything is so right there, right? Like there are things that are right there. And then we know from all sports stories that sometimes all it takes is for one thing to go right, and then the dominoes fall in that way. It just hasn't. So in a way, I'm kind of with Dale. I think that the right stuff is there. The mix is there. I do wonder if we will see it though before Jake Woodwright gets involved, and or probably more than likely,
Yeah, I think Hartle and Toyer figure to see
I think.
much bigger roles this year.
And it was nice to hear Coach John Harbaugh talk about Toyer possibly making it in the SKC game.
Yeah, it should be
cool.
should be exciting. A name City have been chasing even publicly for the better part of 6 months, and privately probably for longer than that. So we appreciate our first hour guest. News is coming up, and we have a whole nother hour still to come of the St. Louis City Soccer Report on the other side of this break. Ruth Harker and Terry Mickler will be with us in the second hour as well. Don't go away. Nate Gatter, Gen C's The St. Louis City Soccer Report continues after the news. Coming up next on the Voice of St. Louis, KMOX.
The Streamline Cheetah is fast. Turbocharged race cars, even faster.
Y98 presents the St. Louis City Soccer Report on America's Sports Voice, KMOX.
Another hour of the St. Louis City Soccer Report on this Thursday evening. Nate Gander, Jen Cease back with you on KMOX and streaming live on the free Odyssey app. If you missed any of our first hour, including conversations with Dale Schilly, Bradley Wright Phillips, and George Gansner, you can go back and hear them in their entirety on the St. Louis City Soccer Report podcast page of that free Odyssey app. You will also be able to hear the St. Louis City game, every St. Louis City game live for free, including the game coming up now in less than 48 hours when City host Vancouver. 7:30 kickoff on Saturday night at City Park. Jen Cease will have the pregame starting at 7. Obviously, and we talked about this with Dale, it's a little bit weird to play a team twice in 2 weeks. It does happen from time to time.
To the last two, right? So it was not the Rapid. Yeah, the Colorado. Yeah, Colorado was like
Colorado
soon.
Was also in a couple of weeks span, more or less.
Weird.
Maybe closer to 3 weeks, but it does happen probably 2 or 3 times a season.
Yeah,
just the nature of how the schedule works out. When you're looking ahead, when we get to that pregame, you can give us a preview of the pregame, if you will. Obviously, a big part of that is looking back at the 4-3 defeat for City, in which they had a 2-0 lead, though, as Dale Schilly said, and rightfully so, they never really looked in control.
Right.
A couple of weeks ago there in Canada. What will you take away? What sticks out in your mind from that game that you think would be then a part of sort of looking ahead in the pregame to Saturday night's meeting?
You know, for that particular game, and it was almost like you saw glimpses of it in San Jose, but San Jose isn't in their good form, right? But you saw pieces.
By that you mean they don't have a good form,
right? They have nothing.
They just flat out suck.
Even the things that went really well, there were a lot of missed chance. So it's the simplest of answers and the hardest things to put your finger on, kind of like what Bradley Wright Phillips talked about, right? It's just a little thing to focus on. But City's not dangerous in front of goal. We're not dangerous in the box. We're not dangerous outside of the box. It's not that opportunities aren't there. There's chance creation. But do I trust that Samuel Adeniran now is going to put it home? No. Nukvi Thorison's going to put it home? No, not right now. I don't. And then what I worry about is the same thing. It's what he talked about in the other box. It's tracking back, and then we've got sometimes we'll have numbers up, 4 guys, but they've got two people and one of them's free. So it's those fine moments where either it's a mental letdown or sometimes it's a physical letdown. Sometimes it's both. They're not in sync right now. And those final parts of the game is just not being finished. And it's the easiest term. It's clinical.
Yeah, it's the one thing. I think that's exactly right. I don't think it's a big surprise when you consider where the roster has been over recent weeks and months, that the issues are in the boxes rather than between them. And the one issue I would take with what Bradley Wright Phillips said, and I can understand why he said it, because when he said he didn't think there was any talent issue, because I understand you don't want to say that anyone in MLS is untalented, because they're not.
Right.
Like,
and maybe I phrased that question.
No. But
wrong.
I understood what you were getting at, and it's sort of semantics. But I think probably if the word used was quality or something like that, maybe he would have been more willing.
Yeah.
But every player in MLS has quality and has talent.
For
right?
sure.
You don't become an MLS, but you're very, very. It's one thing though to be a very, very good soccer player and deserve to be an MLS. It's another thing to be the kind of guy that can be counted on to lead the line for a playoff caliber MLS team, or the kind of guy who could be a first choice center back. And right now, City simply don't have that. They arguably don't have enough of the elite quality of player on the roster, period.
And even when we had the elite quality roster player on the roster, when Joao Klaus, he dipped in form, right? He was also not dangerous.
Yeah, I will also say, at this point, and maybe this is a hot take in St. Louis, at this point, I think it's an open question whether Joao Klaus would be considered of elite quality, in my mind, by MLS standards. Right. I'm not saying he's not getting paid, but this season has been very poor from him.
True.
Even when he's been 100%. Healthy and available.
Correct.
He was great for stretches last year, so I think we still don't know where chances are the real quality is somewhere in the middle, and that would still be enough for me to consider him on the upper end, and certainly a more than capable first choice MLS striker. But what we've seen from him this year has not been near that level. What we've seen for the most part from Edouard Leuven this year, for very understandable reasons, has not been near that level, though I think he's looking more and more like himself with basically every passing game. And what I was going to get to ultimately is, why would we be surprised at all that the issues are in the boxes, right? The one place where City this year have consistently had MLS quality players game in, game out is in the midfield. And that's the area where I think they've been, by some distance, the best.
Yeah.
Their finishing has been, and on the wings, they've been pretty good too, especially because Jose Kojima has proven himself to be MLS quality much more quickly than I think anyone anticipated. But finishing in front of goal has been poor. That's been sort of a rotating door to some degree. And then when Klaus is out there, he just has not been at his level. And at center back, I mean, it's been, how many different guys have started games at center back for City? Like 7 now, right? Yarrow, Wenzel, Durkin they used, Parker,
Nowinski,
Nielsen, Nowinski, Marcanic were at 8.
Yeah, for sure. And I will go on record too. It's just I don't know why yet. But I don't like the Dubula Blom and Chris Durkin combo. I do not like.
It's a little bit redundant in some ways. I think stylistically they're somewhat similar.
And again, I know
they both
Lubin
love
has to rest. They're the same. They're almost the same kind of disruptive player.
They love a hazardous challenge, don't they?
You know, and so it's not my favorite combo. Again, Lubin needs his legs to rest. I get that, but then who else are you going to put there? And John Hackworth will see, not that it's better or anything like that, but every coach has a fresh set of eyes, has a different way. Just him putting Chris Durkin back at center back, I like that a whole lot. I was like, yes.
Yeah, he did really well.
That.
I mean, obviously you'd rather not have to do it all the time.
But I was like, I like that a lot. That's a good one.
Chris is probably like, damn it, why'd I play so well?
Shh, quiet. Quiet.
And I do want to reiterate, not that I don't think this show cheerleads for St. Louis City. I think that's been made clear. But I do want to reiterate that I think John Hackworth is a phenomenal guy for the role that he has now.
Oh, for sure.
Whether he will be the right choice for the full-time job, I think remains to be seen. That's not a knock on him. It also has to do with what other options are out there. To Bradley Wright Phillips's point, which I also thought was a good one. If you're going to move on from Bradley Carnell, who I don't think was top of the list of problems, you sort of have to have a home run guy, if you will, who you're bringing in to replace him to make everybody feel better about that decision.
Let's say that John House has a really hard job to write.
John has a really hard job. And the thing that I love most about him for this particular setting is that to whatever degree, whether it's the Adeniran stuff, the AZ Jackson stuff, you consider that Carnell might have lost part of the dressing room or at least was having issues with man management. John Hackworth is the type of the guy who controls a room and commands a room without having to raise his voice. He's the kind of guy that
worked with him more than me, actually.
People stop talking to listen to. And I think that's the exact kind of calming, but still highly credible.
And he's funny.
And serious effect that they need. Right. He has a wonderful personality that I think manages to be all the kind of credible and commanding and leader that you need in a head coach, while also being a human being. Not that Bradley Carnell was not those things, but John Hackworth is so approachable and so human at the same time as being, such a highly regarded professional. I think his skill set, I think, fits perfectly to be the interim coach of a team that right now feels like it's lost certainly its confidence and maybe even a little piece of its identity, a little piece of its soul, to just restore that internal belief, restore some of that positivity to their soccer souls.
Yeah, just a funny story. I know we got to get to Ruth, and she is standing by. And a little funny story. A couple months ago, several months back, the History Museum did a women in soccer panel, and then they also did a men's soccer panel, and John Hackworth was on there. And I brought Liam, my 13-year-old, who we talk about occasionally. He's been on these airwaves one time. And Liam asked for the microphone, and they gave him the microphone, and then he froze. And after he got done freezing, he said, "What does it take to be a professional soccer player?" And John could not see us out in the audience. So we see, he gave a nice answer, and we see him later. And then John takes him aside and gives him like a few things to do. Since John Hackworth has given Liam things to do, Liam has broken 2 windows, John, and he's broken a part of his bunk bed, because there's something you do on the corner of your bed, or whatever, inside, outside, something. And when you feel comfortable enough, and I don't really know John very well, but I said, first of all, I hold you accountable for what you had. And he said, "Good job, Liam."
Yep.
He went on my mic and said, "Good job, Liam."
Hey, here's what I'll say. If it helps Liam become a professional soccer player, he will be able to pay you back and then some for those broken
and
windows.
I want more than those windows, Nate.
With interest. All right, Ruth Harker, we've made her wait, but she's coming up after the break. We'll talk a little bit about the women's side and what's going on with that. Ruth Harker coming up in a moment on KMOX.
We go where you go. 11:20 a.m., 98.7 FM.
The Y98 St. Louis City Soccer Report continues on America's Sports Voice.
I'm taking over. It's Jen Cease on the St. Louis City Soccer Report with Nate Gatter. Things are getting spicy because it's fun. It's fun. And we got to take care of business the first hour, but now we get to talk about winning. The 99ers.
Okay.
We're going to talk about.
I was going to say, if we're talking about U.S. women's soccer, I mean, they still win more than they lose, but talking about winning might be a stretch.
So we've got a winner on the phone line.
That's true.
So St. Louis's own Ruth Harker, 1985 U.S. women's national team, Halls of Fame, St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, U.S. UMSL Hall of Fame, and my friend Ruth. Thanks for joining us on KMOX to talk about the reason that you made a pretty hefty trip today. Where are you right now?
I'm actually in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm actually I'm coming here for another event, and I hadn't actually planned on going to this game, and then it kind of turned into this 99er thing, and which is fantastic. I think that the whole 99er honoring the 99ers is important because of, it's sort of the tipping point for women's soccer in America and even women's soccer across the globe. I think it was a really important time and place. And so I'm headed there to help honor them.
Yeah. Michelle Akers just posted on her kind of official athlete Facebook that the entire 20 player roster of the 99ers are en route to Red Bull Arena today to celebrate the 25th anniversary of women winning that 1999 World Cup. And I literally, Ruth, I pulled up my calculator. I was like, it's not been 25 years, has it been? And it has. It's been 25 years. And when you think of, you can think so many things with the 99ers, right? The Brianna Scurry, Mia Hamm, and of course, all of my friends at that time that, oh my God, how dare Brandi Chastain take her shirt off when she scored the winning PK? That was just so controversial. What are the first memories that come to your mind? Because you've kind of been there, done that, and you've been around this game forever.
Yeah, you know what? I go back to sort of, these building blocks, of our 85 team. And then, so of course the 95 team who wins a World Cup, and there's 3 reporters, or, you know what I mean? It's sort of like when they came back from China, there was no one, there. I think there was 1 reporter, and the change in that very short time period of selling out the Rose Bowl and some of these other arenas was just so important. It was the right players at the right time and the right vibe of the time. And it was a really important, tipping point, I think, for women's soccer and support of that in this country. So I'm really delighted. I have a lot of friends on that team. I'm delighted to go and honor that accomplishment and that pinnacle time in women's soccer.
I think that's a great point that you make, Ruth, and the U.S. Women's National Team in their press release talking about Saturday's game mentioned as well that the opening game of the 99 World Cup for the U.S. was not even 10 miles away from Red Bull Arena. They played at the old Giants Stadium against Denmark, and that game drew a crowd of 78,972 fans. And I think we forget that sometimes, and that's why I think your point is so important. Obviously, especially in the club game, women's soccer is way ahead of now where it was in 1999. Obviously, other women's sports have grown dramatically. I'm not just taking away from that. At the same time, especially if you think in basketball about like some of the Caitlin Clark discourse over the last year or so, sometimes we act like it's 2024 and the world just discovered women's sports. That's living proof. Almost 79,000 people were there to watch the 1999 World Cup opener, a group game against Denmark after nobody really cared.
Yeah.
Like the Copa in 73, there's 100,000 people there to see women's soccer. And, that no one talked about that for a long time.
Was that at Pachuca? Was that Pachuca? Where was that? I don't remember where that was.
That was in Azteca.
Azteca, right. Azteca Stadium. Yeah. That I didn't grow up. And it's interesting because you'll get Brandi Chastain in some of those Instagram reels and other players like Julie Foudy also saying, I grew up and never knew that even happened.
Yeah.
Like no coverage at all. And sure enough, you dig deep enough, you'll find some VCR tapes or whatever they recorded on beta tape back then.
I mean, it's kind of like, it's a certain form of, and I'm not going to get political here, but it was a certain form of oppression by hiding that.
Yeah.
Not willing to sort of give, this credit to these athletes who are sort of sticking out there. I'm just super glad that the 99ers were able, there were this marketable people. It was a good time and and it was so important for the development and the growth of U.S. women's soccer.
Yeah. You mentioned that exposure too. Obviously, the NWSL, the WNBA, both signing massive new broadcast deals in the last handful of months as well. I mean, just that level of exposure has totally skyrocketed, maybe starting to mirror that underlying popularity that has always been there, even if we didn't see it all the time. I did want to ask you, Ruth, just since we have you, and I know you still follow very closely, about what you're looking for in this Olympics, because it's a complicated one, maybe the most complicated one the U.S. have had in a while because of all the roster turnover, only 8 previous Olympians on this team. It's not the strongest roster the U.S. has put together in the last decade by any means.
Couple of roster changes.
It's also the first major tournament, really the first chance at all for most of the world to see the Emma Hayes-led U.S. women's national team. So first of all, what do you think is their ceiling at this tournament? And maybe more importantly, beyond the results, is there anything you're looking for that would make you say, yes, I'm more confident now than I was a week ago that Emma Hayes is the right choice?
You know what? Numbers don't lie. Emma Hayes has been successful and very well respected, for a long period of time. And I think, it's sort of like, Saber, any kind of men's coach that's been out there a long time is successful. You look at Pat Summitt in basketball and how successful. It's kind of like golf a little bit. Only certain players win a bunch of majors, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. So there's an algorithm to that for Emma Hayes. She's got a formula. I feel really good about Emma Hayes and some of the adjustments that she's made so far. I like seeing some of these younger kids. I do think it's going to be a transition year. I'm hoping for a gold, but I am cautiously optimistic. As best I can. I want, because it's in the DNA of U.S. women's soccer. Everyone in every generation wants to win, and we really haven't had dry seasons for extended periods of time. If you look at the history of U.S. women's soccer, there's not been these dry periods of time. And so I feel pretty good about the development time and the young players coming through. It's time, for that shift. And if you look at the 99ers, one of the great things about the 99ers was this generational mesh. You had players from the 95 team. You had players from the Olympics. You had
Michelle from the 85.
I mean, I played with Michelle in 80, 85, 86. And so I think, that is a really nice thing. It's sort of like it becomes kind of not mother-daughter, but something similar to that. And that you have these matriarchs and then the young ones coming through and you help them, you stick out your hand and you pull them up through that system. And with the desire to win. I don't think there's any doubt that there's the pressure for U.S. women to win, and that's self-imposed. It's a bar. It's a culture. And so I think every one of those young players understands that. And so, it's kind of a hard thing because there's a lot of pressure, and that pressure is privilege, right? But on the other hand, you're young and inexperienced. So you're looking for some of the older players, which we have a very young team right now.
Yeah. Well, Ruth, have the best of time connecting with everybody and at the event and sending, of course, the teams off to the Olympics, and enjoy, and definitely want an update when you get back to St. Louis.
Oh, for sure, Jen. Hey, thanks a lot for having me, you guys.
Thanks, Ruth. Have a great time. That was Ruth Harker, former U.S. women's national team player, 1985er here from St. Louis. UMSL, you name it, she's done it. Goalkeeper. We've had her on KMOX before. Enjoy her perspective and hopefully get an update from her when she comes back from Asheville. More to come. We had to talk to Terry Mickler, legendary CBC, all-time winningest coach. He's won it all, and he's on his way to make it back to the pitch at CBC. We'll talk to Terry coming up next on KMOX.
What's happening in the world of politics? Find out from the guys who know the game best. Hancock and
Dykstra on the controls for us. We've had some busy times already so far, and we've got another guest coming up that, well, if you're in soccer and you're in St. Louis soccer, there is a name that we all know, and his name is Terry Mickler. Terry Mickler, the all-time winningest high school coach, synonymous with CBC soccer. He's run Dutch Touch soccer camps that my kids have attended, and he's got a journey that he's been on and a goal he has to reach, and it's quite literally maybe a soccer goal. Terry, welcome on KMOX.
Hey, Jen, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I was able to see Frank Cusimano talked with you a little bit about kind of your journey overall and about an event that's coming up. So I wanted to first kind of get some background again on just your overall journey with your leg. It was kind of said, the way I've got it from the video was that you would never be able to use a prosthetic, but here you are.
Yeah, that's what I was told when I was told that I had an infection that was kind of the life or limb situation. And my first response was, would I be able to get a prosthetic? And the answer immediately came back, most likely not, because the nature of the amputation was above the knee. And they said there isn't much success in that kind of a situation. So I managed to get one and got used to it and been doing some therapy and taking some steps with it. So it's all been good.
Terry, what's it been like, the sort of the rally of support that you've gotten from the CBC community, from St. Louis soccer community, from all across the country and the world, what people inside and outside of soccer have done to try to help support you and get you through this?
Well, Nate, the short answer is I don't have a word for it. I don't know if there is a word, but I know that it keeps me motivated every day to keep on keeping on. But it's been unbelievable and way more than I would have expected. But the bottom line is it's what keeps me going. The calls, the letters, text messages, donations, the whole nine yards. Yeah, it's overwhelming. That's probably the best word for it.
And another thing that probably keeps you go. Oh, go ahead, Terry. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I got that. It's overwhelming, but deeply appreciated.
And one of the things I'm thinking that keeps you going too is on the video with Frank Cusimano, you made a promise. And I think that promise was, if I got that right, to make it to every CBC home game this season?
No, is to get back coaching full time this season.
So, more than attendance, you're going to be in the coach's chair.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be in the wheelchair coaching, but
that chair moves.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem. That was my goal from the beginning. I had two goals from the beginning of this. And first one was to take everything one day at a time and don't look back and don't look too far ahead. And the second goal was to get back to coaching. So that was motivating every day for me. And now it's about a month away, so I'm really getting excited.
Yeah, what's it been like for you to have that sort of starting to get closer and closer? You mentioned the texts and the messages and the calls and all that keeping you going. I would imagine now the closer you get to soccer being underway again, that probably keeps you going on its own as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the first year that I missed in my career, and I really missed it. And missing it to the extent that I did, I knew how much it meant to me and how much of a part of it I am. And have been and continue to want to be. So, yeah, that's every day is one day closer to being able to get back out there. And now it's in sight. The end's in sight now.
Sometimes players or coaches, when they're away for a while, especially players, that would be, you'd liken this maybe to a player having a serious injury and having to work their way back through rehab and whatnot, will have surprising answers for things that they missed the most, either when they were away from injury or maybe after retirement or something like that. Is there anything that you wouldn't have expected that you found yourself really missing last fall?
Oh, just the day-to-day. I mean, the big thing is the relationships that you build within your team, from player to coach, and just the interaction of being with the players, the competition of the games, the strategy, trying to build something, together. We have a short period of time with the high school season. It's 3 months. It's not a full year. So you got to get them together. They come from all different areas and all different clubs and all different backgrounds. So you got to break down those barriers, and you got to present a vision, and you got to have a plan, and you got to start working to build the plan and then execute it and evaluate it and all that. So those are the challenges. I miss the relationships. Number one, I miss the daily interactions. and I miss the challenge of putting something together like that.
Terry, I'd imagine not only is it a burden, right, to you go to PT and you have so much recovery to do, but the financial burden as well. And I found that the GoFund Terry, it's just like it sounds, GoFundTerry.com is kind of a one-stop shop if people would like to assist with the financing, and from buying raffle tickets, you can do it right there, to an actual GoFundMe page if you want to make a direct donation. And then the other thing though is something that's timely because it's coming up this Saturday night, Trivia Night with Terry, 6:00 at CBC. That sounds like it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. But there's a group of people from CBC and my family that have been meeting regularly for months now, putting this whole thing together. They started with the GoFundMe, and then they were brainstorming for some other fundraising activity, and then settled on the trivia night. And the gist of all that is that my Medicare insurance ran out after 100 visits, and not 100 visits, not visits, but 100 days stay. That ran out December 7th. So, my daily costs become what they call private pay. So it builds up pretty fast. So it's greatly appreciated that there's some help coming.
Absolutely. Are there groups of players that you know are coming, or parents, or your soccer groups of tables that are coming to be at trivia?
Well, I think there's like 50 plus tables already sold.
Wow.
A lot of players, a lot of friends. I bought 3 tables myself for the staff here at McKnight Place, 2 tables for the nursing staff that's been wonderful, and 1 for the therapy staff that's keeping me going and challenging me every day. But yeah, it's going to be, it had 50 plus teams. And so it's going to be a chance to get together with a lot of those guys, and friends and foes alike, teammates and opponents alike. So it's going to be a neat soccer for sure.
Well, Terry, thanks for coming on the show. And let's make a promise when we get close to that high school season, or even into season, let's make a chance, make a date to check in, save the date maybe, and check in on how the coaching part of your season is going.
Awesome. We're glad to do that. Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you.
Thanks again. That was Terry Mickler, CBC head coach. He's back on his journey, back to the pitch. You can participate by either helping him through GoFundTerry.com, and you can also find tickets for his upcoming trivia event. I bet it's going to be a great time. Don't miss. More to come. Nate and I have to close the show and talk about a little bit more going on. There's lots happening in soccer. That's kind of the story every weekend. We'll talk about it next on KMOX.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid.
KMOX.
Final segment, St. Louis City Soccer Report, Jen Cease, Nate Gatter. Nate, we just got done talking with Terry Mickler and Ruth Harker, and when we were talking with Ruth, I was thinking about the fact that as we're this weekend celebrating the epic win of the 99 World Cup with the U.S. women's national team, there are also other things happening this weekend that are kind of really the culmination of a lot of leagues for youth. So ECNL, boys and girls side, the GA Girls Academy on the girls side, NPL, and probably another acronym I'm not thinking about right now that has really their finals of their season. Even though several weeks ago it was State Cup, if you're in these leagues, their finals are this weekend. I know that Marin's team, my 2008 played, 2007s were playing, but various teams in St. Louis are being represented in the different parts of the country that are hosting these finals. So all the soccer, all the time, plus Copa America Euro 24 finals on Sunday night, if I got that right.
Yeah. Euro final will be, I think it's at 2:00 Eastern, maybe, and 6 and 1 Central, and then I think 6 Central would be the Copa final. It's like you said, it never stops.
And another thing that's kind of final for now, a little sad, is our Alex Pfeiffer, St. Louis's Alex Pfeiffer.
Final. I mean,
final for now.
You leave it like that, people are going to think she died.
Sorry. So final for her season. So
Yes.
So her season will have to be over. She posted about 6 days ago on her Instagram. She said something that you never expect to happen. She's devastated and gutted that her rookie season has been cut short. She will not be able to go to the U17 World Cup and represent her country, which I know has always been very important to her. She's done it a number of times. And of course, ending her current season with the KC Current. But when I look on that and just see...
And that's with the torn ACL, right?
Yeah, her torn ACL, her knee injury. And I did reach out to her mom, Kate, who said, she's in just checking on her and just said she's in good spirits. They're already, on a very aggressive plan to get her back. And if there's a player I know that has the mindset, it's not the physical part. Some of dealing with an injury where you have to undergo repair and or reconstruction. I've had one or two of my own. The physical is one part. The mental can really get you down. And boy, is she a bulldog in both. And if there's anybody who can come back, it's Alex Pfeiffer.
Yeah, and not to sound... obviously, she's so young, and so you want to be really sensitive to it. At the same time, it's another. I'm sure it will take a while to adjust to this mindset, but at the same time, it's another part, sort of becoming a professional and accelerating the way that she has. It's so young. I mean, when you become a professional at 15 years old, it's going to be extremely unlikely. She could play for 20 or 25 years. Pretty unlikely you're going to play 2 decades or more as a professional player and never have a serious injury. It's unfortunate for her that it's happened so early when she was sort of finding her legs and getting settled in at this level. But at the same time, I imagine even if it's less fun than the other parts of becoming a professional, it's just another challenge in front of her, and she has overcome every other challenge thus far. And also, this is, I suppose, if you're looking for some silver lining of having become the professional so soon, and there are lots of them, she also gets the benefits of NWSL first team level infrastructure to help bring her back.
Exactly.
As compared to if you're a random 15-year-old who tears your ACL playing high school soccer, not that you can't still get good care and good rehab, but you're not going to get the level of attention.
There's a fast tracking that happens.
Right. You're getting, she's getting borderline one-on-one care from extraordinarily qualified people. And that is a big deal too. So, we have no reason to think, especially with how advanced ACL surgeries and recoveries are now, that she can't come back every bit as good as she has been. And
she was just at their last game signing autographs. Of course, she's on her crutches and taking care. But yeah, absolutely. And this is more than we can handle in this short segment. This would be an entire segment, if not an hour. But what is coming and what needs to come is the understanding of girls and women, specifically with the ways our bodies are different, then we're never in a static state. So so many things change week to week ish for girls and women, and the understanding of not only the body structure that's different, right? We're just not small men. You just smaller men's size cleat.
What does that actually look like?
Right.
What does that actually look like if as that awareness grows and we're then switching from, awareness in and of itself doesn't really accomplish anything, right? Obviously that's the idea. And I'm not saying you were suggesting it does, but obviously the point of awareness is then to shift our mindset to solutions. What does that look like? Is it just more women-focused sports research to try to develop a more intricate, more intimate understanding of exactly what the mechanisms are causing injuries?
Without being a medical person, and so speaking a little bit out,
Right.
definitely
Yeah,
out of my purview, but yeah, I think it's exactly that. The fact that 2023, 2024, women finally got some crash test dummies and they didn't do so well in those car wrecks. Just understanding that the body structures aren't just mini men, right? So new cleats coming out in soccer that's got the different toe boxes typically we have narrower feet. Not everybody, but typically the structure is different. So it's not just taking a men's medium shirt does not fit me like a woman's medium shirt. It is different. So that kind of full on, and I've talked a little bit with Kelly Roderick at St. Louis City. She's their trainer, and she had talked a little bit about working in the women's game and that fact that she was surprised to be one of the first that ever asked her players, hey, are you having a regular menstrual cycle? And they were like, well, nobody's asked us that. And she's like, why not? That is so important to know how the hormones are affecting your ligaments and because they get looser and all kinds of things that I can't even speak to. But I think it's cutting edge science. And I think if you are really looking to understand a moving target, which is the female body, and how you can possibly train with that, I think it's some of the most exciting things that you could look at because the research has never been done. So I really look forward. I don't like that they're getting hurt, but I do like the fact that it makes us look at that on a high level and say, wow, things need to be done. Besides, Messi doesn't play on turf because we know turf sucks. So having players like that and watching them get better, hopefully at a faster rate than we used to, it would mean so much.
Yeah, the way you described that job, it's going to be for a very particular type of person because if you like the challenge of constantly metaphorically shooting at 25 different moving targets.
That's right.
And then that's the thing is they're all different. All the targets are in different places at any one time. And then even once you hit one, it's like Schrodinger's target, right? Then it's gone.
Hi, welcome to being a chick.
Or Heisenberg's target, not Schrodinger's.
Okay, yeah, it's a target. It's a moving target and it's hard. And it'll be nice to know if we try, even if it comes to Nate, we know sleep studies we know are normed on men. And hey, guess what? They're not right for us. So it'll be great to see. And I'm thinking about this about my daughters, right? So I'm far past needing stuff like this, but my daughters and maybe their daughters and the new generations of being able to understand and train to the levels of nutrition and training that the men get, I think will be fantastic in pushing overall science forward.
If you missed any of these conversations, any of our wonderful guests we had this evening, you can go back and hear it live on or not live. You can hear it on the podcast page.
No, not live.
St. Louis
I'm not
City
doing it
Soccer
again.
Report on the free Odyssey app. You can also hear City on Saturday night, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:30 kickoff on our sister station, Y98, and that free Odyssey app. We'll be back with you next Tuesday night, 8 to 10. This has been the St. Louis City Soccer Report on KMOX.
And paid for by AG Marketing Group. Attention timeshare owners. If you need to get rid of your time